After discovering my boyfriend's infidelity, I decided to hire someone to assassinate him. Now, I stand on the balcony, watching through the window as the dagger pierces his throat. Blood spurts out. He doesn't even have time to make a sound. He struggles futilely like a chicken about to be slaughtered in the market before collapsing on the ground. I curl my lips in satisfaction, affirming the assassin's professional skills, but unexpected lie. He notices me. He must think I'm just an unlucky soul who stumbled upon the crime scene. So he readies himself to deal with me as well. In that second of eye contact, the man gives me a killing smiles. What else to do but warmly welcome him? I open the window, waving at him enthusiastically. Hey, want to come up for a visit? It seems he wants to test if my skin is as tough as my mouth from noticing me to appearing at my doorsteps with a knife. The whole process takes no more than 5 minutes. What did you see? He asks, his tone colder than a blizzard on Mount Everest. Normally, I should be kneeling and begging for mercy, frantically shaking my head and claiming I saw nothing. But I'm not normal. I greet him calmly and cheerfully respond. Oh, I saw everything clearly. From the stabbing of the man's throat to the bottom, less fear in his eyes. It was truly thrilling. His gaze turns icy, and he thrusts the knife towards me. Don't want money? Suddenly, the blade stops a centimeters from my throat. What do you mean? He asks, staring intently at me under the brim of his hat, his eyes emitting a sinister messages. I confident to push the knife away, sitting on the sofa with my legs crossed. If you kill your employer, who's going to pay you the rest of the money? I understand his behavior. After all, he wouldn't expect the employer who hired him to live across the street and watch the entire event from beginning to end. His expression flickers with suspicion but quickly fills with murderous intent again. You're the employer? Why should I believe you? I sneer, having anticipated this situation, and shout the prearranged code words. White crew. The man freezes, not moving. I can barely maintain my composure. Repeating the code word again, he raises the knife once more, and now I panic, realizing something is wrong. I asked him, aren't you the blood rose? I hired you from Obsite. I pull out my phone, attempting to find the incriminating transaction records to prove my identity as a legitimate employer, not someone seeking death. Seeing this, his tense expression relaxes, and he lowers the knife, then presses his lips together in an exasperated manners. Have you ever seen an assassin use such a code names? I am taken aback, only able to offer an awkward smile. Hey, it's my first time. I'm inexperienced. The man pauses, as if remembering something, then says, the person you mentioned, Blood Rose, that's the person I'm supposed to be watching. Feels like I've been hit over the head, instantly understanding what happened. No wonder he didn't trust into my code word. Damn it. I curse. Realize the so-called distinctive roses. Assassin I founded on Ign website was just a shameless scammers. They took my money and almost got killed by me, my own hire. At this moment, I want to slap myself hard on the face. So, it turned out I did hire the person. After all, eagles are at the man. Hoping he realizes his earlier disrespect towards a client, he silently turns away, and I settled back into the sofa, reassured and crossing my legs again. Now you know. In the end, I am the employer. Although I didn't know how much money that scammer took, it fortunately didn't affect the final outcome. Are you sure he's completely dead? After receiving his affirmative answer, I breathe a sigh of relief, feeling pleasantly at ease. I was about to say I'd transfer the remaining money directly to his account when suddenly a scream echoes from across the way. Without a moment's hesitation, I grabbed the binoculars and rushed to the balcony, not wanting to miss the second of the action. Immediately sees Cindy, pale-faced and collapsed on the ground, her eyes wide with terror, looking at Rock lying in a pool of blood, now cold. Her once delicate features are distorted by extreme fright, looking as if she wants to cry but is instead fighting back the urge to vomit. I find it utterly hilarious. My smile stretched nearly to my temples, and my laughter came so exaggerated that even the man long ignored couldn't bear it any longer. If he had any dubities about me a second ago, this moment had completely convinced him. Perhaps to him, I saw meds so twisted that even a psychopath would thought I was deranged. Who is she to you? He approached, his expression complex, as he placed his hand on my shoulder, signaling that if I continued to laugh so wildly, once the police arrived, we'd both be caught together. The one who died. I managed to curb my laughter, though I couldn't shift my gaze from across the street, watching the man who once promised eternal love to me now silently lying in a pool of blood, with another woman mourning beside him, my ex-boyfriend, Rock. And as I gently touched at my flat belly, I then calmly stated, he was also the father of my child. The man followed my previous gaze, starting to speak. She cheated on you, so you decided to kill her? His tone carried as light disbelief. I was dumb, founded at how nosy this man could be. Didn't know to respect a client's privacy? Yes, what about it? Haven't you ever taken a crime of passion job before? You know, the man actually admitted, nodding somewhat in shock. I suddenly felt choked up. Realize I might have shared too much. After all, we weren't that type to exchange gossip as if we were. Close confidence. Continuing this conversation could lead to an awkward ending. Aren't you going to run? It looks like she's already called the police, I said, pointing across the street with a serious faces, hoping the man would understand the gravity of our situation and leave the scene immediately. Instead of discussing with leisure me whether infidelity merits death, the man saw meds to see through my concerns. Don't worry, he said indifferently. It haven't left any trace. Once the money is transferred, I'll disappear. I would get caught and drag you into this. With that, he moved towards the door, cautiously checking the surroundings before opening the door to leave. Wait, I hastily called out to him, remembering the financial transactions. We still have a middleman between us. I really don't know how to proceed with the transaction. The middleman probably ran off with the money. By now, how I am supposed to contact you? Although it's against the rules to know too much about each other. Who would have thought my peeping would be discovered? If only I had been more cautious in my observation, none of this would have happened. Worried the man might have reservations. Anyway, I added, we ray both in the same boat now. There's no need to hide anything from me, right? After hesitating for a moment, he exchanged contact information with me. Paul. He introduced himself with a serious face, even extending his hand in a formal gesture. I couldn't help but laugh. Why did it feel like we were at a matchmaking sessions? I didn't actually plan to ask your name, I said, symbolically touching the tip of the man's fingers. It was ice cold, devoid of any warmth. Tina, I said, considering we were both in this together. I honestly shared my name. The man nodded, opened the door, and left. Not 2 seconds later, he came back. What's next? Line to that code of yours? I was surprised he asked that. With gestures abroad, I cheerfully replied, the black mushroom. Shortly after Paul left, the piercing sound of police sirens filled the outside. As the sole eyewitness at the scene, I decided to lie back down and sleep for a while. How else would I have the energy to deal with what was to come? Rock was dead, and as his ex-girlfriend, it was no surprise that I was invited to the police station for Ackett. Miss Tina, what was your relationship with Rock? Former boyfriend and girlfriend. Do you know he's dead? Yes. It's all over the complex. I heard about it. Is that true? I feigned surprise, making sure to squeeze out a few tears in a show of sorrow. Although we had broken up, I didn't want his death to be so mysterious. You must find the murderer quickly. As I talked about my past with Rock, I became increasingly upset, tears streaming down my face. Seeing this, the officer didn't press further, only asking where I was on the day of the incident and if I had been in contact with Rock recently. I shook my head, indicating that since our breakup, we hadn't met privately, only hearing about each other through social media. After all, he was about to get married. It's only right to keep a distance from an ex-girlfriend. But the officer sitting opposite me frowned suddenly. Investigation shows you and the deceased lived in the same complex, quite close to each other. Oh, yes, I replied, smoothing my hair and meeting the officer's suspicious gaze with calm. I moved here first. Why they also moved in, I'm not entirely sure. It must be a coincidence. How can it be a coincidence? This was Cindy, that woman, choosing the right apartment across from mine as their new home. Like lie to spite me. Thanks to her spitefulness, I got to enjoy the spectacular scene of Rock's blood splattering the ceiling in my lifetime. How satisfying. I wish I could watch it again. The officer then asked a few more inconsequential questions, which he answered without showing any signs of guilt. The whole process was natural and smooth. Why feel guilty? I spoke nothing but the truth. Paul was the one who Saint Abed him, and a scammer intermediaries hired him. What does that have to do with me? Leaving the police station as evening approached, I felt irritated. Today was supposed to be the day I confronted Cindy, but I ended up at the police station, wasting an entire day. Hearing that Cindy had been hospitalized due to the shock, I naturally planned to pay her a proper visit. The next day, I got up early, took out my pepper stone from the cabinet, and dissolved it in the chicken soup I had prepared, ensuring it was completely dissolved before carefully pouring it into a lunchbox. Since my child was dead, why should Cindy's children live? I could never forget the scene of her and Rock lying naked in bed together. Nor could I forget Rock's words that we should part amicably, huh? Go to hell, both of you. Carrying the thermos, I walked through the hospital hall, pondering how to administer the chicken soup to her. Upon reaching the door of the room, I saw Cindy lying weakly on the bed, pale as paper, with a middle-aged woman beside her peeling an apple. It turned out to be her mother taking care of her, looking quite frightened. I couldn't help but sneer. Was Cindy really such a coward? The woman's expression turned to surprise upon seeing me, hurried lie putting down the apple, and warm lie grasping my hand. Tina, you've come to see Cindy, haven't you? I knew it. You would hold a grudge against Cindy for past issues. I wanted to have a word with her alone, I said, cutting the woman off impatiently, not wanting to prolong the conversation. Oh, okay, the woman nodded, her eyes reddening as she glanced at Cindy on the bed. Tina, please try to talk some sense into Cindy. She needs to see reason. Death is irreversible, and her mood has been terribly low lately, listless all day long. Even the baby is gone now. What are we going to do? As soon as she finished speaking, the woman started to weep, worried about waking Cindy. She quickly left the room. I subconscious lie gripped the thermos tighter, nearly laughing out loud, feeling a bit regretful that the chicken soup I get up early to prepare was going to waste. Now alone in the room with Cindy, I pulled up a chair and sat down, waiting quietly until she slowly awoke. The moment she saw me, her gaze sharpened from a blur to focus, exclaiming, "How could you be here?" "Of course I came to see you," I said, pointing to the thermos on the table. My smile broad. "Didn't need it. Leave now," Cindy demanded, reaching out to knock over the thermos. A stark contrast to her earlier composure. I didn't get angry. Instead, I leaned in closer, chuckling lightly. "Your mom just told me your child is gone, and with Rock's tragic death, it's like a double celebration, right, Cindy? Get out, you crazy woman. It was you. You were the one who killed Rock." Cindy screamed, attempting to throw a pillow at me, but her efforts seemed futile to me. Effortless lie pushed her back onto the bed, laughing. "I suspect the person most under suspicion should be you, Haven. You've been constant lie arguing. The neighbors have heard it all, and someone even reported you for noise disturbances at night. What? Has she fallen for someone else? Or is she already cheating?" Cindy's face flushed with a mix of anger and embarrassment, struggling to speak, but only managing to cough. Seeing this, I added fuel to the fire. "You might want to save your explanations for the police since it was your lover who died. But if they really struggling and want to prove your innocence, why not follow Rock in death? You loved him so much, didn't you? Did it too say I was never worthy to stand by his side? Well, in that case, whether in life or death, you should be by Rock's side, right?" I stared directly at Cindy, watching the fear in her eyes dissipate as she began to scream hysterically. Hearing the commotion, the woman outside hurried in with a doctor. A group of people brushed past me and struggled to restrain the agitated Cindy. I stepped forward, gathered the overturned thermos, and left the room, feeling utterly satisfied. If she is already finding it hard to cope now, it's too soon. Cindy, this is just the beginning. Unexpectedly, I encountered Paul right before stepping out of the hospital. In the bustling crowd, I spotted Paul's figure just a moment before exiting. My mind went blank for a second. Then, impulsively, I followed. He wasn't planning to take someone out in broad daylight, would he? I haven't even transferred the money yet, and he's already on to the next job. Do assassins always work this hard? Full of questions, I discreetly followed. Paul stopped at a single room on one of the patients' in floors. After he entered, I cautiously peeked in. Taking action so brazenly? If Paul gets caught, wouldn't I be doomed to? Startled, I pressed my ear against the door to eavesdrop, but stumbled and burst into the room unceremoniously. Damn, the door wasn't closed. Now I wonder if my employer status can save me for the second time. The atmosphere turned incredibly awkward as I fell and looked up to find myself eye to eye with Paul, who did not smile this time. Her expression visibly stiffening. Girl with long flowing hair sat on the bed, her large eyes watching me curiously. I quickly got up, my mind racing with what to say to alleviate the awkwardness. Is that my brother's friend? The sudden question threw me off, leaving me stunned, unable to grasp the situation where the girl referred to Paul as her brother. Are you here to see me? The girl's voice was filled with hopeful excitement as she turned to confirm with noticing the person beside her. Paul's grim expression. I quickly played along, nodding eagerly. Yeah, I'm a good friend of your brother. Just happened to see him in the hospital, so I came up to say hi. Glancing at Paul, I noticed his light eased in his tension. Sarah, remember your manners. Paul finally spoke up, his voice as soft as water, which reminded me of the threatening figure with a knife I had encountered before. Hi, I'm Sarah, the girl greeted, holding my hand with a sweet smile, her eyes sparkling like stars. Her innate friendliness made her immediately likable, and she chattered away, happily until Paul intervened. "Sarah, it's time for you to rest, and you should be heading home too," signaling me with a look. Understanding the cue, I pretended to have other engagements and needed Ed to leave. Sarah was reluctant but obedient, laying back down. "Can you come to visit me again?" she asked as I was leaving, her eyes full of anticipation. Paul was about to object when I got in. "Sure, what do you like? I'll bring it next time." Paul saw me taken aback by my quick agreement. To prove my sincerity, I initiated a pinky promise with Sarah, a gesture of a timeless childhood pact. As I reached the hospital entrance, I didn't head straight home but lingered, correctly anticipating Paul would follow. "How about a coffee?" I suggested, pointing to a cafe across the street. "Thank you," Paul said awkwardly from across the table, thanking me again upon noticing my surprised look. I coughed awkwardly, never having expected Paul to thank me. I thought she might threaten me to keep quiet, or else face dire consequences, fitting more with her assassin identity. "But what were you doing at the hospital?" she asked with a hint of interrogation. Holding up the thermos, I explained, "I was unstalking you. I came to see Cindy, the woman from the other day. She was hospitalized. From shock, I came to bring her some warmth." "Warmth?" Paul looked skeptical. "Okay, fine. I actually came to feed her abortion pills. She was pregnant, but by the time I got there, she had already lost the baby. What appetite! All the soup I made early this morning went to waste." Paul's expression flickered with surprise, not understanding my actions. "Is it necessary to go to such lengths, THS? Love can't be forced. There's no need to involve yourself so deeply over someone unworthy." I remained silent, leisurely stirring the coffee in front of me. Seeing my unyielding demeanor, Paul lost interest in the conversation and changed the subject. "Could I ask you to visit Sarah again in a few days? Just once would be enough. I don't need the rest of the money. Or if there's anything else I can help you with, I'm willing to do it." Paul's voice grew soft, even a bit nervous. It was clear she cared a lot about her sister Sarah and was afraid I might refuse her request. Gradually, I became somewhat pensive and then smiled, indicating it was necessary. Noticing the disappointment in the person opposite me, I quickly added, "You don't need to do anything else for me, and I won't shortchange you on the money." As for Sarah, I had already promised her. It can't go back on my word. Your sister is very adorable. I don't mind visiting her at all. Honestly, I really do like Sarah. It's not just because she has a brother who sounds assassin. Paul offered me a genuine smile for a change, but the topic of money piqued my curiosity. Tapping on the table, I inquired about the intermediary's offer to he. As Paul looked puzzled at my sudden question, taking a moment before slowly raising a fingers in response. "How is that possible?" I was shocked, double-checking with Paul to ensure he hadn't misunderstood. The price I was quoted was only half of what he mentioned. However, he insisted there was no mistake, revealing the unsettling truth. The intermediary I thought was skimming me money off. Both ends had actually hired Paul at double my offered price. I sensed something fishy and asked if he could find out who this person was. Paul nodded, mentioning it would take some time, but promised to contact me once he had any information. After returning home, I lay in bed, trying to piece together the entire situation, but couldn't make sense of it. Why would someone accept my job only to pay Paul more? No intermediary would act so irrationally unless another party also wanted Rock dead. This was the only logical explanation I could come up with. Unable to pinpoint who it might be, I decided to wait for Paul's findings. A week later, I attended Rock's funeral. Donning a wide-brimmed hat and blending into the least conspicuous corner of the crowd. I watched, silently as friends and family cried inconsolably, gazing at my once-loved rock. His photo displayed the same charming appearance that could make any girl's shirts flutter. Is that? Not exactly, but somewhat, as I couldn't explain the tears streaming down my face continuously, as Paul suggested. Was all this really necessary? I could accept Rock not loving me. Even denying our children didn't matter. I can side. Reddit am mistakes in love. But why Cindy? I had warned Rock that anyone but Cindy was acceptable. However, it didn't matter anymore. He wouldn't feel lonely for long. Soon I would send Cindy to join him. Wiping away my tears, discreet lie, I bid farewell to this troubled relationship. Goodbye, Rock. For good, I realized I had been wrong all along. Along how he was never my light or my salvation. Never. I didn't forget my promise to visit Sarah whenever I had free time. I browsed online for gifts, eventually choosing a strawberry bear plus high. Sarah appeared to be around 18 or 19, but seeing meds to have been in the hospital for a long time, with few visitors, which explained her joy at seeing me. If not for Paul, she would be alone except for her silent plush toys. When I arrived with the strawberry bear, Sarah was so excited she nearly ripped her oxygen tubes. Despite the pile of toys beside her, she cherished the strawberry bear, telling me about her life. With Paul, they had no parents. Relying only on each other, Paul started working at a young age to support them. And just as Sarah was admitted to college, she was diagnosed with a blood disease. It was evidently how much Paul had sacrificed to afford Sarah's treatment. I felt a pang of sorrow, having assumed Paul was a monster like me, resorting to assassination out of necessity. Sarah's acknowledgement of her grim prognosis, despite the cost, was heartbreaking. She dreamed of returning to their hometown with Paul, who refused, focusing solely on work to provide for her. Sarah, laughing yet filled with despair, couldn't share these thoughts with Paul, who would never abandon her, no matter the slim chance of hope. Returning home one evening, I was led by shame in starting the hallway. Before I could scream, Paul emerged from the darkness. "It's you. You scared me. I thought Rock was coming for me. What were you doing silently lurking king there?" I asked, as lightly annoyed as he entered my apartment. "Did you find out who that person is?" No response came from behind. Turning around, I met Paul's gaze. "Did you visit Sarah today?" he asked softly. "Yes. She told me a lot about you," I teased, pretending to lament his exposed identity. Paul's eyes flickered with an unspoken emotion before he abruptly pulled me into an embrace, his body trembling. It seemed, in moments of extreme pressure, everyone needs an outlet, like Sarah. Paul couldn't share his true feelings with his close sank in. "I'm sorry," Paul murmured into my shoulder. His breaths were heavy. He stood still until his breathing died, offering us shitters for a moment of needed head support. "It's not anything strange." It stood still until Paul's breathing calmed down. "Feeling better?" "Yeah." He released me, turned around without a word, and walked to the balcony, as if everything that had just happened was only my hallucination. I walked over, smelling the faint scent of smoke. Paul had cigarettes in his hands, his expression as usual. "The person I asked you to looking for has been found. Who is it?" I asked eagerly. Paul paused, squeezed the remaining cigarette butts, and uttered a name that chilled me to the bone. "Do you know Lucy?" I froze. My limbs felt numb. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. "What's wrong?" Paul quickly supported me. It looked up silently, pulling out a pale smile. "Lucy is my mom. My mom is Ahmed woman. Simply put, since my dad left her for postpartum depression and started a new family with someone else. She went mad and she blamed it all on me. She thought if it weren't for my birth, my dad would end they've cheated and left her for another woman. I was too young to understand why. Unlike other kids who had both parents, I only had my grandmother. Your mom is sick. She needs time to get better. She'll come to pick you up when she's better. This is the sentence I heard most from my grandmother. I wrote it on a notes, carried it in my school bag every day to school. Finally, in my second year of junior high, my mom came back. She took me from my hometown, apologizing and promising never to leave me again. On our way to a bustling city filled with towering buildings, the sight of these close, packed buildings just led me. Soon, I had countless beautiful dresses and moved into a dreamy pink princess room, even transferred to a top private middle school. Initially, I thought I was the happy street person in the world, until after an exam when I joyfully brought my report card home hoping for praise, only to receive a harsh slap. I covered my face, tears streaming down instantly. The gap between the town and the city was too big, so big that even if I studied hard, I couldn't easily become the top student like before. Still, I naively believed that being seconds would make her happy, but was met with a slap that shattered my illusions. I provide you with the best, and you turned out to be useless? You can't even surpass Cindy. What can I expect from you? What use are you? I was stunned, forgetting even to wipe away my tears. Why did my mom know Cindy? I never mentioned any classmates in front of her. And why did I have to surpass her? I looked at my mom, dumbfounded, because she is the child of yours father had with another woman. Before I could react, my mom grabbed me, her sharp nails digging into my flesh. I wanted to, screaming from the pain, but was silenced. You always ask where your dad went. I'll tell you now. He ran off with another woman when he gave birth to you. You were aging. I've already lost to that woman. Do you want me to lose to her daughter as well? I stood there unable to cry, finally understanding that my mom didn't care about my rank or how hard I tried. She painstaking sent me to this school just to beat Cindy, regardless of the harm it might cause me. From that day on, I could no longer face Cindy, let alone accept that she was my half sister. I lived cautious every day, locking myself in my room as soon as I get home, avoiding any talk about school with my mom to not trigger her sensitive and fragile nerves. Still, conflicts were inevitable. My mom would call teachers to control my every move at school. Once she learned I was outperformed by Cindy, her mood would collapse entirely. Each time, I could only hide in the closet shivering, listening to the sound of breaking furniture and my mom's unbearable screaming outside. Others, then desperately covering my ears to force myself not to be afraid. There was nothing I could do. I had to endure and understand. As my grandmother said, she's just sick. She loves you. If you abandon her like your dad did, she won't be able to live. At that time, I was solely focused on maintaining this hard-won happiness. By the time I realized something was wrong around me, it was too late. Rumors about being a bastard child with no father, a child of a mistress, spread in class like a stone, small yet capable of causing huge ripples. Thus, one ordinary noon, I was dragged into the restroom by a few girls from my class. Only then did I belatedly realize the strange looks and boldness I felt recently weren't illusions. They were about me. They were talking about me as they passed by. My eyes were filled with labels of guilt. I recognized those girls, the ones who always clustered around Cindy, acting as her sycophantic entourage. We all know about the mess in your family. Tina, don't you think you owe Cindy an apology? The leading girl shoved me, her voice oozing with what she perceived as righteousness, always putting on airs. Who are you trying to impress? No wonder you never mingled with our classmates. So, you raise a bastard child, huh? Just because you raise a transfer student, you think you can stand against our Cindy? They were so sure of themselves, even without any evidence, which was absurd. In reality, it was Cindy who was the illegitimate child, her mother the homewrecker. And now, they shameless lie pinned those sins on me. Angered, I fought back, trying desperately to shout the truth, but no one believed me. In the end, I was pressed into a wash basin, with peals of mocking laughter ringing in my ears like merry bells. After several repetitions, I no longer had the strength to resist. Exhausted, I curled up on the ground, enduring their malicious sneers. How could they believe me? It was I who always kept to myself, whose parents never showed up at parent-teacher meetings, and who was left alone in the rain at the school gates. But Cindy was different. She was smart and beautiful, always topping the class, beloved by students and teachers alike, from a well-off and happy family that everyone envied. Like a swan, she perhaps knew about our connection earlier, then aided and detested me without showing it. Oh, from my first day in this class, Cindy was the first to speak to me, perhaps to maintain her flawless persona. She felt compelled to be nice to me, the dude why transfer students from a small town. He almost fell for it, until those absurd rumors filtered every corner of our class, silently nailing me to the pillars of shame. What judgment could teenagers have? They were foolish and mad. A little provocation could maximize their latent malice. No substantial evidence was needed. Merely rumors, thin and unconvincing, exaggerated beyond belief, were enough to condemn and so on. How do you know it's true? Everyone says so. If she were innocent, how could she be talked about like that? Rumors can't be made up. There are dozens in the class. Why single her out if not guilty? She didn't clarify immediately, which means she's guilty. What's the use of explaining now? It's just making excuses. Cindy was clever. She didn't have a need to be here because she knew someone would stand up for her to harshly punish me. The ingrate. She was kind to me, not minding my introversion or my clumsiness, not caring that I didn't participate in class activities or 1:2. Answer the teacher's questions. She would quietly prompt me. When I was left alone during pay, she'd DC me over and hold my hand. When some boys made crude jokes at my expense, she'd stand up for me. See, even he almost believed her. But we were destined never to be friends, let alone sisters. Only Cindy could have made me the target of everyone's sorrows and fermented rumors so quickly. It seems she hated me more than I thought, although I didn't know where she got the nerve. I lay on the cold ground, too exhausted to keep my eyes open until they bored of tormenting me and left. I didn't remember how I get home. When I opened the door, my mom was on the phone on the sofa, not even glancing at me, as if she couldn't see the bruises at the corner of my mouth, my torn hair, or my dirty, wet uniform. She saw nothing. I went back to my room alone, swallowing my grievances. It knew the happiness I once desperately wished for would never return. The rumors were just the beginning. It saw meds like bullying me had become an unspoken agreement in the class, including my desk mate, who chose this moment to abandon me. After all, sinners should be desk-beast. Whenever I left my seat, I'd find it filled with trash, and my textbooks and homework would be mysterious lie disappear. Anyone passing by could accidentally knock me over, endured it over and over because complaining to a teacher would mean calling a parent, and I couldn't let my mom see Cindy. I was too naive, thinking that by keeping my head down, I could survive at school. But they didn't stop. I was cornred on the school roof again. They pushed me down in front of Cindy, demanding an apology. Cindy crouched down, her fragrance of jasmine enveloping me. It must be hard for you. I didn't want to be like this to you, Tina. But why does your mom keep asking my dad for money? Why do you and your mom have to disrupt our family's lives? I'm giving you two options. Disappear on your own, or I'll make you disappear. Cindy. The seas were full of resentment, her words revealing that she believed my mom and Pity had ruined her perfect family. Such a pretty face. Every word she said was nauseating. Oh, I scoffed, slowly rising. Is that so? I seem to remember the others. Woman being someone else, and you, the illegitimate child. I deliberately emphasized the last few words. Cindy's face changed color, and she slapped me. What are you? How dare you speak to me like that? Dad will never acknowledge you. And your mother who only comes for money. You and your mother had better disappear quickly. The long suppressed grievances and anger in my heart erupted in that second. It lunged at Cindy, grabbing her delicate neck. All I could think about was that I had to kill Cindy. How dare she? What right did she have to speak to me that way? The suddenness of my actions shocked the girls around us. They froze before hurrying to stop me, no matter how many attacked. I kept my grip on Cindy, fighting her fiercely until someone fetched the teacher, and we were forcibly separated. Soon, we were all summoned to the office. Cindy was in tears, looking pitifully sad, surrounded by people comforting her. I stood aside in disarray, listening to the teachers as furious scolding. Tina, this is utterly unacceptable. A decline in grades is one thing, but now you've resorted to physically attacking a classmates? Call your parents immediately. I shook my head. I won't just expel me. I preferred being expelled led outright to having my mother see Cindy and losing her mind in public. The teacher, pointing at me, was at a loss for words, about to continue scolding me when a well-dressed couple rushed in hurried lie. What happened to Cindy? Where is my daughter hurt? The woman walked straight to Cindy upon entering, examining her with a face full of concern and tenderness. My heart skipped a beat. My gaze involuntarily landing on the man. It was Jason, the man who abandoned my mother and me. I imagined meeting my father more than once. What I envied most since childhood was the kids whose parents came to pick them up every day. So, over the years, did she even think of me for a second? Did she know she had another daughter when looking at Cindy? Did she feel even as light bits of guilt towards me? My palms started to sweat. Looking somewhat anxiously at the man, Cindy was crying fiercely, and her classmates took this chance to add fuel to the fire. The woman's face grew uglier by the minute, shooting me several glares. I glared back, unwilling to be looked down upon. She stormed over, wanting to seek justice for Cindy, but Jason stopped her and also asked the teachers, stirring up trouble not to call my mom just yet. Clearly, she knew better than Edith what the consequences would be if my mom showed up. After calming his wife and daughter, the man gave me a cold glance and ordered, "Follow me," so she knew of my existence. Always had. Suddenly, I wasn't nervous anymore, calmly following him out, not out of fear, but wanting to know what disgusting words this despicable man had to say. Once outside, he raised his hand. "And you are trying to hit me in what capacity?" Mr. Jason, his hands froze, and he finally lowered it, his voice low with anger. "How did your mother raise you? Teaching you to fight at such a young age? Do you want to end up crazy like her?" Hearing this only made me want to laugh, and and also made me feel sad for myself. How could I have any expectations for such a person? A man who cheated during his wife's pregnancy and never bothered Red to look at his own daughter for over a decade does to deserve to be called my father. He took a deep breath, pushed the man in front of me with all my might, and said, "Get lost. You have no right to control me. Even if he end up a 1,000 times crazier than my mother, it has nothing to do with you." I didn't wait to see the shock on Jason's face. I fled the scene without looking back. With no sound of pursuit behind me, I ran around the school track, holding back my tears. What's there to cry about? I'm not icked anymore. I didn't need my dad to pick me up, nor do I need him to defend me after being hit. I never needed Edit from the start. Today, I beat up Cindy at school. What? You really hit her? My mom jumped up from the sofa. Her eyes are sharp, almost piercing through me. She hadn't looked at me this close lie in a long time. Perhaps because I could never win against Cindy, or maybe because she was pre-occupied relationship with Anu, leaving no time for me. She was completely unaware of my life at school. Or maybe she knew but found it irrelevant. However, I didn't want to talk about this. I just wanted to use Cindy to get her attention. "Mom, can I switch high schools? I don't want to attend one high school anymore." What I really meant was, I didn't want to face Cindy every day. Didn't want to live in her shadow days after day, despite my tactful approach. It was clear my mom couldn't accept it. "What nonsense are you spouting? Where else do you want to go, if not to the high school section of one high? Do you have any idea how much effort I put into getting you into one high? Do you know how much disdain I've faced every time I ask your dad for money? Who am I doing this for, if not for you?" She hysterically yelled at me, smashing a glass cups on the table. 2 pieces. She started again, crying out about her hardships, cursing Jason who betrayed her, and berating me, likening me to trash. "I should never have had you. Your dad ruined the first half of my life, and you, the worthless one, are ruining the rest, aren't you?" I said nothing, numbly kneeling to pick up the fragments. I was so tired. Night after night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling as if countless whirlpools in the darkness were pulling me to the very bottom, where not aspects of light could penetrate. Yet, life had to go on, whether I liked it or not. Every morning, I had to drag myself with heavy steps into that desk-based classroom. After that incident, I was completely isolated, becoming the class's invisible person. Furthermore, the teacher moved my seat to the very back of the classroom, right next to the trash can. I actually thought it was for the best. At least I could spend the remaining days in peace until the day of the middle school exams, when the whole class was cheering and hugging in celebration, except for me. That night, the class leader mentioned going for a barbecue, and the group chatted and tagged everyone. The responses piled up quickly. I didn't hesitate to leave the group and then blocked everyone. Happiness was theirs, not related to me in any way. Ultimately, I couldn't switch schools as I had hoped, even if infidelity was on the ground, begging my mom over and over. My head bowed and bleeding. It made no difference. On the first day of school, I nervously checked the class division information. After confirming Cindy's name wasn't there, I finally breathed at a sigh of relief. It didn't matter. The school was big enough that if we weren't in the same class, we probably would run into each other. I comforted myself, thinking I had finally escaped Cindy, but she saw meds to be everywhere, always the subject of conversations around me, like the new student representative. Speaking at the opening ceremony, the pretty junior asked for her contact Information on the confession wall. The perfect student in the teacher's eyes, unaffected by anything. She shone brightly on aphids strewn with flowers. While I eroded away and noticed in a corner, I became increasing self-conscious and sensitive. Any unfamiliar glances made me uneasy, reminding me of those unbearable memories. I needed to get into university, to leave this place to escape Cindy, to ensure my mom could no longer control me. So I completely shut myself off. During my senior year of high school, there were times I couldn't even spoke a complete sentence when classmates occasionally tried to strike up a conversation. I could only silently watch them leave, puzzled until everyone forgot about me. On the day of choosing universities, I originally wanted to pick a place over 1,000 kilometers away from home. But my mom found out. She looked at the information on the computer screen, first stunned, then incredulously turned to me. Tears fell like pearls off, asking, "You want to leave me, don't you?" For once she didn't scream or shout. Her tone was full of grievance. My heart tightened, reminded of my grandmother's sad admonitions before she passed away. In the end, I softened. After all, she was my mother, my only family in this world. Moreover, Cindy had gone abroad for her studies. It's like lie. We'd never meet again in our lifetimes. As time passes, my mom began to improve, and her visits to my dad gradually lessened. The shadow Cindy cast over me seemed to fade, bit by bit, and then light seeped in. In my sophomore years, I met Rock, the president of the school's tennis club, a popular figure often mentioned on the confession wall, information he gathered from gossiping roommates. I had joined at the tennis club, reluctant for extracurricular credits, but couldn't blend into their laughter and joy. Mostly, I found myself picking up balls on the side until Rock approached me one sunny afternoon. My face burned red under the sun as I held the basket of balls, and he jogged over, casting a shadow over me, then turned and smiled, asking why I was playing with everyone else, making it seem like the club was bullying me. I blushed harder, barely whispering a no, just that I didn't how to play. "That's Cece. I'll teach you," Rock said, his smile lighting up his obsidian eyes, piercing through the cold, damp moss in my heart. Later, he pushed through the crowd, ignoring their puzzled looks, and firmly took my hand, saying, "Tina likes you, like his many admirers." I wondered why he chose me. Rock didn't care for reasons. To him, liking someone was just that simple. Initially, I had little expectations for our relationship, thinking we'd end like most couples, with graduation and separation. But that didn't happen. On graduation day, he proposed to me, introduced me to his parents, and gave me a flower shop. He promised to lay apith of ever a blooming flowers for us to walk in our lives together, saying I didn't need to envy anyone anymore because I had his complete love. "Tina, I will always be by your side." How touching that was. If it hadn't seen Cindy, I might have thought I had regained happiness. Love might not penetrate the bone, but hat red surely could. Even Amber's silhouette didn't stop me from recognizing Cindy immediately at Rock's company as annual party. Standing beside her, radiant as a perfect pair, I had planned to meet him at his company, but the sight of Cindy sent me fleeing. In a nausea, clutching the wall outside, I vomited until I couldn't breathe, the fresh air barely reviving. Me ignoring Rock's surgeon calls, I leaned helplessly against the wall, belated lie remembering him mentioning a new, lively and beautiful interns from abroad in his department. Everyone likes her, including him, I had joked, not taking it serious lie and unaware of his intern. Was Cindy? Of course not. "No one compares to you," he had said. I believed him, but not Cindy, nor that her appearance was a coincidence. I would end high-yield this time. Not at all. Due to my absence, Rock hurried home before the party ended. Where were you today? Weren't we supposed to meet at the company? He switched on the bedroom lights, finding me curled up in the dark. His anger was justified. He didn't know the truth, and I had indeed stood him up. I tried to keep my voice steady, but it trembled uncontrollably. Cindy's been transferred to another department. Or could you change jobs, please? Rock paused, then said in disbelief. So you really do know each other. Others. My breath tightened. A bad premonition suddenly arising. What do you mean? The last time she saw our photo on my computer, she said she was your middle school classmate. She even asked me to bring you to the annual party today to catch up. But you never showed up. You didn't? Answer your phone either, Rock grumbled, a dissatisfaction clear in his voice. Thunderclaps saw meds to explode in my head. Instant lie making me realize Cindy's intentions were deliberate. She must have seen me. I won't meet her, and neither should you, Rock. Listen, whatever she says, you can't believe it. I emphasized urgently, like a frightened cat. Rock frowned, confusion written all over his face. Tina, are you being a bit too much? Missing the party is one thing, but asking me to transfer her or change jobs? Is it necessary? It's just a small misunderstanding. Who? Doesn't they have conflicts with classmates? She's not holding it against you. So why are you overreacting like this? Not holding it against. A small misunderstanding? Those overwhelming rumors and the bullying that made my life were miserable. Dismissed with just 3 light words. And in front of Rock, she painted our relationship as a minor squabble between girls. Cindy really knows how to play the game. Do you really trust her that much? Do you know what she has done to me? I looked at Rock, my voice breaking with despair. The person who bullied me gave me nightmares. Made me so depressed, I became mute. Made me so scared I could only walk close to the walls. Was Cindy, a stubborn thought Rock would stand by me once he knew the truth, but he just looked at me helpless lie. Cindy can't be the person you're describing. She, as scared of a cockroach in the office, always cautious around me during lunch or work. How could she be as you say? Were they really that close? It felt like cold water had been dumped over me. I stood frozen as Rock left with a cold face. He didn't believe me. Between me and Cindy, he chose Cindy, despite claiming he loved me. Our arguments became more frequent and intense. Rock refused to change jobs, preferring to hurt me rather than remove Cindy from his department until I could no longer bear it. I stormed into his office and slapped Cindy in front of everyone. She held back tears, yet her lips curved into a victorious smile because Rock stood behind me, witnessing everything. A treat to explain to him that Cindy provoked me first, sending me many taunting messages, saying I didn't deserve to be with Rock, that I was just like my mother, unable to keep a man, only capable of going mad. Argue? Rock pointed at the shattered glass on the floor, his tone cold as if he never loved me. How many times have he told you? My relationship with Cindy is strict, lie professional. You don't trust me, doubting me over and over. Look at yourself now. Every argument, you become hysterical, smashing things everywhere. How are you any different from what Cindy said? The light that had seeped into my world was extinguished in that moment. The reflection in the mirror was a woman full of hatred, red, and hysteria, slowly overlapping with my memories from years ago. It grabbed an iron rod, crying as it smashed all the mirrors in the house. The next time I saw Rock, he was in Cindy's bed. That day, I held the ultrasound of my pregnancy, wanting to have a proper conversation with him, only to be met with that scene. I dragged unached Cindy from the bed. She screamed and backed away, and Rock, without hesitation, pushed me away. The first 3 months are sensitive, the doctor had said, advising me to rest more after I was discharged. Rock found me and handed me a card for the flower shop he gave me. I'm sorry, Tina, about the child. It truly am. Sorry, let's part on good terms, he said with eyes full of regret. Breaking up with me to be with Cindy, the flowers in the shop with red, as did my heart. Is it dramatic enough? I leaned on the railings, exhaling deeply as if I had spoken all the words of my life. Paul stood quietly by, not making a sound from beginning to end. It should have pushed deeper that day, he murmured, his gaze deep. The room that should have been filled with joy had turned into a house of bad luck overnight. How ironic. My throat felt dry, my eyes stinging with pain, suddenly overwhelmed by fatigue. Are you okay? Paul reached out to check my forehead, his proximity allowing me to smell the faint scent of laundry detergents on his collar. I waved him off and headed to the bedroom, but he grasped my wrist firmly. Don't Tito anything foolish. Paul pulled me, the warm th from his fingertips slowly spreading into my heart. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I quickly pulled my hand back, explaining, no, I just want to sleep for a while. Can you stay? As soon as I said it, I realized what I had asked, a hitman to stay with me. It must have been delirious from exhaustion. All right, I'll stay. I won't go anywhere, Paul replied with extraordinary patience. His tone is gentle, as if he were soothing a child. He must have been worried I would go after Cindy. Right then, he stayed with me until before dawn, leaving. When did it start wanting them dead? I closed my eyes, carefully recalling every thorn that had embedded itself in me, trying to determine which was the most lethal. It's when I received that wedding invitation, feeling utter lie despairing, and climbing to the rooftop, wanting to end it all? Or was it when Cindy flaunted myself in front of my mom, causing her to relapse? But why was my mom involved in this? Not long after her relapse, I moved out of the house, or more accurately, I left. It was my mom throwing my things out and then chasing me out the door. She couldn't accept me, repeating her tragic life. Ironically, I was already as miserable as her, if not more. They all died. My mom could perhaps get better, and my shattered world could be rebuilt. For that, I had to drag them all to hell. No one could stop me. Before that, I didn't plan on confronting my mom about why she decided to kill Rock for me, as it was already meaningless. There were more important things waiting for me to do. On Sarah's birthday, I appeared as promised, holding a huge birthday cake and singing an off-key birthday song with Paul. After blowing out the candles, I cut a small pieces of cake for her, make a wish. Even though she didn't say it, I could pretty much guess she hoped at her health would improve and her brother would end they've to work so hard. Sarah just shook her head with a smile, sobbing to hide something in her clenched hands. I give my wish to you, big sister. You should be happier. Do we look like I'm a fake smiling? On the way back, I reluctantly asked Paul, struggling to accept that it brought my gloomy mood to the patient. After all, I really liked Sarah. Every time she called me big sister, it reminded me of my endless, annoying sister. So, cry if you're sad. You don't have to force us miles. Why act as if nothing happened? You're clearly in pain, are you? Paul stared at me, then unexpectedly pulled my head to his shoulder. It's not your fault, Tina. You were the best person I've met. His words tugged at my last defenses. It suppressed the sourness rising in me, not wanting to lose face in front of Paul, because a look ugly when angry. So what? Our deal is already done, Paul. Leave me alone. that sitting, pushing him away was the only better solution I could think of. Our relationships should end here. Paul's eyelashes drooped, casting out small shadows beneath his eyes. I couldn't tell what he was thinking, but the plum meeting atmosphere clearly showed his mood. Without a proper goodbye, I left in a hurry. Paul probably wouldn't see me again. I think it was because of Sarah that he was nice to me. Until later, I found the note Paul had secretly left in my bag, saying, "Live well from now on. For yourself, I'll clear all obstacles for you. Remember me, Tina." I felt a chill from my feet, rushing to the hospital without even changing my slippers. A few days ago, I learned from social media that Cindy had disappeared around the days of plan to act against her. I initially thought she hid on purpose, never considering Paul's involvement. If he got into trouble because of me, I could never face Sarah again. I kept calling Paul, only to be met by a accosted female voice repeating, "The call cannot be connected." I couldn't find him. Sarah was also gone from the hospital room. Desperately, I realized I knew too little about Paul. I regretted the harsh words I had said that day, meant to keep him away from my misfortune. Now, all I could do was pray that Paul and Cindy's names wouldn't appear together in the news, at least proving he was safe for now. Writing notes is so childish, not like we're in elementary school. If only he had said it to my face, I wouldn't push him away again. "Paul, will you come to see me?" I couldn't reach him, and my messages remained unanswered, so I waited at home, hoping Paul would choose to show up. However, I never expected to be waiting for Sarah's ashes. Sarah is gone. Paul said upon seeing me, the sweetest smiling girl had become as small boxes in Paul's hands. She indeed wanted Cindy to disappear. But on the same day, Sarah's condition rapidly worsened. By the time Paul reached the hospital, it was too late. I knew this day would come, but I didn't expect it so soon. Do you think it's me fault? In the end, it still affected Sarah. Paul looked defeated, almost crushed by the weight of his emotions. A dull ache filled my heart, making it hard to breathe. "At least you were a good brothers," I told him. Paul covered his face in agony, his shoulders shaking uncontrolled. "Certainly, I wasn't. If I had been, I would, and they've let her condition get so bad before. Real easy treatment costs too much." I discovered for the first time how quickly money can flow away, like water, even working 24 hours non-stop. I couldn't earn enough. I was truly out of options. I just wanted to save her. The first time I killed someone, I was covered in blood. For a long time, I dared not see her, only staying brief lies each hospital visit. I read my identity being exposed could endangered her. I thought I'd die first, so I left a large sum of money for her. But what's the use? I still couldn't save her. I had never seen Paul so vulnerable, as if as light pushes could shatter him. I couldn't leave him alone. Together, we buried Sarah and made sure to place her favorite strawberries bare at her grave. Sarah would never know the lengths Paul went to just to give her one more day, being led to the borders by an organization, hunted by enemies, taking on the most dangerous missions, nearly not making it back several times. I told him he was ridding society of evils, that killing bad people and scum didn't count as a sin, but he insisted that killing was killing, and its nature doesn't change with the victims. Character. Sora's death was so sudden, it made me forget something very important. How Cindy disappeared. Some things evolve in unexpected ways, like finding Cindy's body in a deserted parking on the city outskirts, her beautiful face mutilated, and my mother as the perpetrator. Moreover, she had colluded with a young, pretty woman to embezzle all of Jason's money. The man jumped from the rooftop the day he went bankrupt. My mother diagnosed with severe schizophrenia, was committed to a psychiatric hospital. Her lucid moments dwindled, sometimes not recognizing me or even being coming. Violent, the doctor's cautionary advice during visits echoed as I saw my mother struggling against the nurses forcing her medication. I knew she wouldn't get better. No amount of medication could pull her out of the mire of that failed marriage. Approaching her, I softly called out, "Mom." She looked much older, her face lined with deep wrinkles, her cloudy eyes fixating on me for a long time. Before her, with red fingers slowly touched at my face. "Found a way out. Live on, my daughter, even if it means stepping over their bodies. Don't worry, no one can hurt you anymore. I'll go to hell myself and tear them to pieces. Even in death, they won't find peace." Strangely, I couldn't stutter. Her voice grew hoarse, her expression turning vacant as she began to mutter to herself, singing nursery rhymes she taught me as a child, holding a pillow as if it were me. She often made chicken with mushrooms, though it tasted awful. I couldn't quite grasp my feelings, feeling as if a huge part of my heart was missing. Despite thinking I had nothing left to lose, after one last look at her, I slowly closed the door. I thought my tears had dried up long ago, but seeing Paul waiting outside, my emotions suddenly collapsed. He had been there the whole time, not leaving. I cried uncontrolled, certainly in the bustling streets, and he kept patting my back. "Cry as long as you need. If anyone dares to look at you, I'll beat them. Let's go see the sunrise," I suggested, tugging at his collar. Two people with nothing left, sharing their miseries. Cindy's death brought me momentary thrills, but I soon realized nothing had changed. My ruined childhood and the decay of my earlier life could end. TB&1. As we reached the mountain peak and a golden red light broke across the sky, I said, "Let's go." "Where to?" Paul asked. "To where there's light. Look, the sun is rising."